Well, I have. I've moved around a lot in my life. I lived in several countries, and so I don't have, I suppose, the same sense of place or home that some other people do. Um, and I suppose, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche. Lots of writers talk about this, but the community of people that have written books in the past is it is a community that I feel I would like to belong to that community. And I guess most writers, I mean, if you speak to most writers who are doing serious books of whatever kind, they would like to be thought of in in those terms. You know, they'd like to write great books that add to the canon of great books. Um, and so yes, I mean that's one thing that was on my mind when this prize was announced, because it's not a prize for a book; it's a prize for a career, you can say, um, a career in the past and a career in the future, because it's an investment in your. And so it's some sort of signal that somebody thinks you can write great books. So that's very reassuring. Because yes, I think. That is the way I would define myself, more than where I live or anything like that. And even I thought that there was a kind of new class, a nouvea-riche class that was becoming very powerful in Delhi at the time, and a lot of people mocked them and said, you know, how uncouth they are, how whatever. And there was a. This is now 15 years ago, so there was. I think the group of people who were at the top of the journalistic career were people who were probably born in, I guess, let's say the 1950s or 60s, very much of the socialist era with its sort of ideas of frugality and all that. And they thought that these people who were driving fast cars and wearing certain kinds of clothes and going to certain kinds of nightclubs or whatever, that they were just pathetic and contemptuous, and the fact that they were starting to make lots of money was very threatening. And so those people also were not taken seriously. People were not actually going and asking serious questions of those people, because they were already rejected as a sort of legitimate kind of Delhi subject. Similarly, I think there are lots of applications in the political sphere that we haven't yet got to, where AI can actually be a source can produce consensus and truth rather than the opposite. So, for instance, and in this sense, you know, you could put AI almost in a kind of God position, where it sort of doesn't necessarily get drawn into kind of party political divisions and things like that. So, for instance, one example I give in my book is that politicians today basically have to keep electorates happy because they need to be voted in again. And in that sense, they're unlikely to tell electorates that they should, for instance, make sacrifices in order to have a better relationship with natural systems. But AI, which is very good at analyzing enormous amounts of data and looking at what's going on in different systems, can actually come back and say, in order for your kind of national profit to be maximized and your national well-being to be maximized, you really need to make sure that this forest or this water system or this wild animal is protected, even when it compromises the interests of human beings or the economy, because otherwise these things are going to start falling apart. That sort of non-human perspective, that AI perspective that could compare lots of different systems and see what is the optimal outcome of all those things. I see that as being quite an exciting intervention into a lot of our very ideological conversations about these kinds of things. And I think that we can actually think of better democratic systems, better ways of harvesting best opinions and ideas from populations in the future. But I have to say, it's actually more fun being on the other side of things. I think actually giving the prizes is more fun than getting them, because it's very creating the JCB Prize was one of the most exciting things I've ever done in my life, because as you say, the company was making available a significant amount of money, which means that you are able to make a real difference to writers' lives, and give a dramatic recognition of their importance in society, and setting up juries and finding ways to bring the best Indian writing to a wider public was great. And I had lots of conversations with the director of this prize, the Windham-Campbell Prize, about all this when we met subsequently, because he was saying, I have the best job in the world, just calling people up and giving them money, but also designing the systems by which we will choose those people and promote those people. It was really great. And I think, unfortunately, I couldn't continue with the prize. It's now taken over by somebody else. And so I'm not really in touch with how it's going anymore. But I think it was always the intention of JCB, the company, and Lord Bamford himself, that the prize celebrated a great diversity of Indian voices. And I think it coincided with a moment where all the publishers were also doing a lot more translation and were switched on far more than they had been 10 years previously to what was going on in other languages. And so it was very exciting, I think. I hope it's still as exciting as it was then.